House Bill 481, which is referred to as, I believe, the Heartbeat Life Bill, it doesn't just deal with abortion. That's been a lot of the focus. But what it does is it defines what a person or a child is in this state. In domestic law, you could not get child support for an unborn child. What was an unborn child? A child that actually had been born and living outside the womb. Compare that with if, let's say, for example, a pregnant woman was in a car accident and the fetus died. In Georgia, that child wasn't considered a child or a human being unless or until the child was viable. So now we have a definition of what a human life is as it relates to an unborn child. We no longer apply a viability standard, now it's a heartbeat standard.
It's a woman's body, so it's a woman's choice. I don't think that they can just generalize and make one big law that suits everybody. I don't think that is fair. I don't think that works. I think that it's too soon to the point that they're cutting it off to when you can't get abortions, because most people don't even know that they're pregnant at that point, and I just think that that's not fair.
Initially with the Heartbeat bill, I think like the first thing I saw was like the news notification on my iPhone. And then after that, it was on Twitter, on Instagram, on Reddit, on Facebook, just all over social media. The celebrities who started getting involved, and people are going to like boycott Georgia because of that. And you have big actors, big studios, like all threatening to pull out of Georgia because of it. And I don't think we could take a hit that big to our economy.
This isn't going anywhere. We've got $17 billion worth of economic dollars being spent here. That's not just gonna go away. Suicide Squad 2, for instance, is gonna start filming in August, I believe, or October or September or something like that. They had every opportunity to leave, but it's a $170-something million movie, and you tell them they're gonna save 30 or 40% on that, they're gonna be like, what heartbeat bill? Politics aside, the state and the conservatives in Georgia won't let that go. They'll do everything they can to keep that going. I was always raised as a kid to run towards a building that's on fire, not run away from it, you know? And I think that's what Georgia is right now. I think Georgia's on fire, and I think that the Hollywood types can either run away from it and boycott, or they can run towards the fire and use their influence and their presence here to educate and refine and define what the future of this state looks like for a lot of things, not just necessarily the Heartbeat bill.
So I know companies like Netflix or Disney are threatening to pull out, but I also know that there's people who have influence that are also trying to make a stand. If you look at America, America is a very conservative country. And I feel like this bill, the people who are trying to pass this bill have that mindset. Yes, social media influencers have the ability to get the people by their side and maybe protest this bill, but I don't feel like they'll have enough influence to actually stop it from happening.
Ultimately, these politicians, you know, they support, you know, what the people want. So, and if the film industry is that important to Georgia, then they got to be part of the groups. You know, having worked in the industry in Hollywood, you know, for decades, that artists, whether performers, you know, whether it's actors, actresses, musicians, they're very passionate about their craft. You take many people who are at a point of influence who have social capital, not just capital, but social capital. And these people, start to use their voices for things they believe in and for things they feel that the average person doesn't have a voice in.
What the legislature did in House Bill 481 is they set forth in the beginning of the bill certain findings, and they actually reference Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which was a case that was handed down by the United States Supreme Court in 1992, and then of course Roe v. Wade, which is the seminal case. But what the legislature has said in its findings is that at the time those two opinions were handed down, we didn't have the medical science that we have now.
The girl could have gotten raped, she could have been molested, like you don't know her financial situation. And if you look at shelters now, like shelters are already overcrowded, it's hard for them to find foster parents, to find the resources to receive government funding. So I believe if a woman has to have a child not by choice, something that was forced on her, and she doesn't have the resources to take care of it, like why should that law be legal and why should somebody else have control over that when at the same time they're not going to be the ones that are helping her raise that child or helping her receive the support that she needs?
In one of the subsections of the statute, if you are a victim of rape or incest and you're 20 weeks or less in the gestational period, you can have an abortion without any showing. However, you had to have filed a police report. How many rapes occur that are never reported? The fact that I'm a woman, and I find that a little troubling that we're not going to believe a woman if she says I was raped or I'm a victim of incest unless she calls the police. I find that a little troubling. I think there may be some challenge to that.
You have women who were not given the choice of whether or not they want to partake in a sexual act, and now they have the choice of whether or not they want to keep the baby from that act taken away from them as well. I believe it also discriminates against women who are from lower economic statuses. Young women, a lot of the time, who may have made a mistake, who may not be ready for a child, who may want to still go to college, who may still want to advance in life, who are now not able to do so because they have another life to look after.
I think film companies, they have reputations too, right? So like the film companies have to worry from start to finish on a project, all they worry about is the dollars and cents, right? So they're not doing it for political reasons. If they were to back out, it would be because they want people to go to their movies. If it's shot in Georgia, maybe that will give people a reason not to show up at the theater or not turn the channel. It comes down to money.
Six weeks is essentially just a 2-weakness period. I think that the government doesn't really care what happens to children once they enter like foster care system and things like that, but they care about the baby when it's unborn, when it's not wanted. I think that the earth is overpopulated as it is, and if a woman doesn't want to keep her child, the government shouldn't have a right to regulate what she does with her body.
What it does now allow is for a mother to go into court much sooner and start having a putative father pay medical bills. The way the law was before was once a child was born, you could do DNA testing. And then at that point, a court could say, okay, I order you to pay the medical bills that were incurred. Now, what seems to me problematic about that is what if you as a putative father said, I'm not this child's putative father. I'm not this child's biological father. Could it be that a judge orders a man who is not biologically connected to a child and not the legal father because they're not married to pay effectively support? It could be problematic in the domestic area.
You know, ultimately the people who lose out, are the people who work in the industry. So it's like in many cases, you have two countries that governments that don't get along, they go to war, but it's not the presidents and VPs and prime ministers, slapping each other upside the head. It's the people they send out in the, the military, right? It's the armies, it's the, militias, whatever. They're the ones who are fighting. So the ones who would lose in this case, because you have politicians and industry leaders, but it's the workers that lose out.
We have to pull the curtain back and you think people's lives are at stake, people's households are at stake, the food on their kids' dinner plates are at stake, and I don't think those things are going to go away overnight. It's a $17 billion industry. We've created a giant here and there's no taming it. It's not just going to disappear. I get questions all the time from my relatives that are like, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? Is the film industry disappearing? And I still firmly believe that there's no better place to be in the world than Atlanta to be a filmmaker and to be a writer and to be a creator. But there are other people that could live here, that could move here, that could take these political stances, right, and do their best to influence the people and educate people, that right now may not think like they do. And that's the way you make change.